Welcome. This is a special edition of Conversations with Youth, specially done for Youth Day. And with me, I have Sutumbeko Wam. I'm hopeless with names. So I'm not even going to try that. I think I'm going to allow you to actually teach me how to say your name.
Stumbeko Wamblawai.
Wamblawai. Thank you so much. And welcome our viewers. I am a little skeptical about what time you're looking at, watching or seeing this, but welcome. I'll go straight in, and I am going to ask Stumbeko, what exactly do you do? I know you as the feminist of Facebook, but I know you have a life behind that. And I know you do a bit of, I always tend to think you do activism, but I'll ask properly now. You let me know exactly what you do.
Okay, thank you. So pretty much I'm a communication specialist who's into social media. So even on my professional front, I'm actually a social media person. I work as an online content producer for an organization here in Lusaka. I've actually worked all my life. I've worked within the sectors of developmental aid. I've worked with a lot of different NGOs who have different focuses on community problems, solving communities. I've worked for a governance foundation as well. And I've also worked for a rural community organization that deals with sponsorship of minority children or children from vulnerable households. And I also worked for a hospital that deals with disabilities and treating curable disabilities for almost 4 years. So I've been in that sector for quite a long time, and all my roles have pretty much basically focused on communications as a tool for social development. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Really, that's really nice. So I would be interested in equally why did you get into feminism? Because I think a lot of us get to know you through the feminism.
Well, I got into feminism actually. I've always believed to be a feminist. I just pretty much did not know how to describe who I was for the longest time. I just knew growing up, especially in Zambia, when you are different, when you are weird, or when you are always challenging social norms and being unconventional about who you are, they've always been like, why are you like this? You know, those questions have always have plagued me all my life. So I just didn't know that I was trying to break the narrative of what a Zambian woman should be and how we should act and behave. So a couple of years back, I don't even remember when, I was a victim of a violent attack. And unfortunately, it took a lot of willpower to get over that and actually sit down and try to understand why that thing happened to me, first of all. And the second thing was trying to get in terms with what happened to me. And for the longest time, because I'm a very outspoken, loud person, everybody just thought, oh, you're very quiet. Why are you like this?
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, when that happened to me, I really grappled. I struggled to find my identity as a young woman. That was in my early 20s. And from there, I just started reading more on feminism and understanding and trying to get courage from people who I feel have probably gone through what I had gone through. So that's how I found myself understanding that whatever happened to me was not a result of my own doing, and that I should actually get strength from what I experienced. So that's how I ended up. I love writing and poetry. That's how I ended up now using my voice, my writing, really, to tell my story and to share the pain and problems and difficulties I went through as a young survivor. I didn't really honestly think that it would pick up. You know, as writers, we only write
Yeah.
things because it makes us feel good. It's a release, you know. And
Mm.
so I found myself writing and more people getting interested and getting a lot of young people, young voices, young women. And that was during the Me Too movement, when sexual abuse, sexual assault, and physical violence against women was really piling up, and women were actually speaking
Yeah.
out. So that's the time I also actually found my voice and decided that maybe instead of just being a closeted feminist, I should probably start using my talents and my voice to get word out there. So that's actually how I started my journey with feminism. And I can say that I think it's been great so far.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I've enjoyed your content, and it was very refreshing because for the first time here was somebody that wasn't ashamed to say certain things, and I think you were equally speaking from the same book I was speaking. Except oftentimes when I would speak, people would look at me like, Why? What did you just say? Do you have no breaks and that kind of thing?" But there was somebody like you were now saying things that I probably wouldn't say sometimes. I would think it but never say it. And especially, I think there was one topic that I really liked, and the one that really stuck with me was where these women would have, where you have your stillborn or you'd lose your baby very soon after childbirth, and then you're not allowed to grieve. And I found that very empowering, and that you had a voice. Not only were you speaking kind of feminist, but you were equally speaking on just women issues. And I think that's what probably drew a lot of people to you. Um, and what I would be asking you is to, what encouragement would you have for a youth who doesn't want to speak up or who is ashamed to speak up?
I personally believe that we've been taught, especially as African women, that there's so much power in being quiet and being
Mm,
resilient, taking the L and just not making a big deal out of it, or not making a fuss out of what you're going through. So
mm,
you find that for most of us, that is what I can call our default setting. Our default setting has always been to actually just stay quiet, not really address what we're going through, and just take it in. Because when it comes to strength, women have always been viewed to be strong, not because we are strong, we're more stronger than men
mm,
mentally or intellectually, but because of our ability to take what's come to us and like bottle it in and not really talk about it. So for me,
mm,
I believe that young people need to realize that their voice matters, and that we need to break away from these cultural and social stereotypes that make us feel that we're inadequate and that our stories will not change. We find that most women are so scared to talk about what they're experiencing because it's not just societal and cultural, it's also the stigma around coming out,
mm.
talking about how you're a victim. Sorry, that's a very horrible word. You're a survivor of something, because that doesn't define you, right? And you find
Yeah.
that they would rather stay quiet and it eats them up. For me, my advice is that there is so much strength in finding your voice and speaking out about an injustice or about something that happened to you without
Mm,
you feeling that it makes you weaker or it
yeah.
makes you a target. So
Yeah.
young people just need to realize that you need to speak out when there's an injustice that's been done to your body, there's an injustice that's been done to you in your family, at your workplace, in church, in other different avenues of your social existence. By speaking about it, there's also that opportunity of actually finding other people who have probably gone through what you have, but are also too afraid to talk about it. So you always have to make sure that, first of all, if you are not ready to speak or share your experience, no one should force you to tell your story. You always have to tell your story when you are ready and confident enough to actually share it. But you need to realize that strength comes with you understanding that what happened to you, like I said, is not your fault, and also that you might not be the only one. As horrible as that sounds, you might not be the only one who's been through something, and you will end up finding people within your social circles or within your family circle who have actually also gone through what you have gone through. So always speak out. The first step is actually speaking up, sharing your story, or just pointing out an injustice. Do not feel that you have to be limited by the societal constraints around you. I think that's very important advice that most young people, especially young women, need to listen to and understand and pretty much relate to whatever situation they're going through.
Absolutely. I think one of the things that a lot of people actually don't realize is that when you speak up, there's a lot of liberation in that speaking up, and
Exactly.
you're freed from whatever it was that held you back. And I know a lot
Exactly.
of times when I say certain things, people look at me and they're looking at, they give you that look, and I get so many questions. I get, are you married? How does your husband live with you? You get so many things, and all these things are sort of created to block you from actually speaking up, because maybe it's too embarrassing, or it's too confrontational, or it's too blunt. People shouldn't talk about these things, mulwelele. So people have that understanding that we shouldn't speak up. And one of the things I would think,
Exactly.
unfortunately, is still a barrier. I don't know if you think this is that, do you think our mothers are still quite closeted?
Hello?
Hello, you can get me. So I was asking, do you think that our mothers are still closeted? Like, because I feel like sometimes we want to speak out, but maybe the women ahead of us are so still, closeted. So I don't know. Do you think there's been a shift recently, or are we still so tied up under the cultural norms?
Yeah. I actually, whenever I'm talking about the role of our mothers and older women in our society, I actually take it back to my own family, especially me being a millennial, a young woman in my 30s. I always picture it this way. My mother, for instance, my mother is one of the few that was, can you get me? Hello?
Hello. Sorry, I'm having a bit
Hi,
of network issues there. You can get me now?
I can get you
Oh,
now.
cool.
You
All
can
right.
get me?
Sorry about that. I think that's some network issues.
Yeah. So
So
what I
yeah.
was saying is that it goes back to our own family structures that we have to understand as women. Like, for instance, my mother is the first generation of my family born in the 60s who had the opportunity to get educated and go to school. But then her mother before that never got that opportunity. So you find that even as we are discussing and grappling on situations on what women can do or cannot do, we need to realize that our history as Zambians also plays a huge role in the level of exposure that our family go through. So you find
Yeah.
that right now in the 21st century where we currently are, you will realize that we, the newer generation, are more open because we've been exposed to a lot of things, we've gone through a lot of things,
Mm,
but our mothers before us, their key worry was survival, building the family legacy, ensuring that children are educated and exposed to more opportunities than they were before. So
mm,
you find that
yeah.
the traditional aspect is all about protecting us and ensuring that we get what's best in whatever privilege we've been handed, but that they do it with caution. And their mothers before, it was all about more cultural, traditional values, because they didn't have that level of education we currently go through. They grew out of, the understanding that family, Africanism is the way we should go forward. So we should not actually be too quick. We should be not too quick to judge the women of the past, because they were simply adapting to structures that were there before them. And where we are right now is that we are breaking things that have always been considered okay, or things that were legitimized, because where we currently are is different. We have been exposed through the internet, social media, to a global village where we're able to share our ideas and get inspiration from women all across the globe, and not just Zambia. So respectfully, we always have to promote our culture and listen to what our parents say, but we always should not be afraid to question. The first thing we have to do is question and ask how and ask why. And then once we understand that, we'll be able to sit down and see where our parents are coming from, and also decide then what are we carrying to the next generation of women after us. What are we going to teach our young girls? What are we going to teach the generations that are coming forth? So you find that as Africans, we are not as privileged as the Western world, where all they have known, especially say white people or culture, where it's always been about fight for your rights, understand who you are, there's power in who you are. For us, we also have to understand that we have so many things and barriers that have made it so difficult for women before us to speak up and be who they are. And now, because our structures, society has leveled up, there are more opportunities for women to get educated and get an understanding. You find out that we are stronger than the women before us, and we have the opportunity to change and break that narrative without us feeling like we are doing something wrong. So for me, I believe that our parents, our mothers, our grandmothers, they had to adapt and live in the world that was presented before them. And as much as people always say, no, people from back then are backward, you realize that some of us, our mothers, our aunties, even some people's grandmothers, they were the first generation of people to be educated under Kenneth Kaunda. And that they got, and this opportunity, it's only been 40 years, so we can't expect such a radical change in thinking when these opportunities were only presented to our women at a later stage. It's not for us to critique and ridicule, it's for us to get the key elements and learn and grow from them and decide what then we carry, without erasing the past and making a mockery out of it, but really analyzing where we are and taking that and creating a bigger, stronger generation that, mind you, which would be different from the Western world, where they don't have much of a culture, but we are so blessed to carry these traditions, these mother tongues into the new generation. So for me, I just feel that it's very easy for us to mock and laugh at women of the past, but they had to do what they had to do.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Absolutely. Yeah. That's great. I think the other element that I find, especially in our Zambian circles, is that you're not only battling when you talk about feminism within the female population, you're equally battling with the men. And unfortunately, the men are under the understanding that feminism is emasculating the men, when actually it's not. It's actually making the platform actually very good for them. And I know a lot of young people are very iffy about it, and I've heard so many people tell you how, someone will tell you, well, I'm not going to get married if I become a feminist, and you're looking and thinking, sorry, where did that come from? But I think this narrative really needs to change, and I don't know what you think about it.
I think when it comes to male involvement with feminism, the first thing I always say is that men need to understand and point out their privilege, because they were lucky enough that the male or African understanding of masculinity is for men to be the providers and to be the heads of every family. So you find that it's easy for them to carry that and incorporate their African understanding into this modern culture where it doesn't change much. They always know that I am the head of the man. So even back in the day, priority for education was always given to men before it was even given to women. Even before affirmative action, that's when we got more girls in school. But they don't realize that the teachings that they were raised on, or what society continues to raise to encourage men to do, is actually very bad on their mental health. There are a lot of conversations on mental health now, and it's also about trying to not to feel like they have to adopt a woman and keep her, but it's about you having access to an equal partner who is going to be able to
Absolutely.
actually provide for the family, give you 50-50. It's not about emasculating, it's about empowerment. It's about saying, listen, this world, first of all, the other thing people don't always seem to realize is that the world is changing so much. There's so many pressures that
Absolutely.
it's ridiculous for people to think that you need to take care of someone's child and provide for them. You need two salaries in the house. You need two intellectual minds to ensure that you are, for me, like, unfortunately, I'm a cliche feminist who has never been married and have no children, and I'm over 30, Unfortunately, that just happens to be part of my story. I didn't plan for it. But most men need to realize that it's an opportunity for them to let go of whatever expectations society has on them and realize that they need to
Absolutely.
find someone who is going to give them a platform of equality. And my biggest fear is always been like, will I be the kind of parent who is inadequate towards my children? Will I be able to provide for them what my family was able to provide? It's our
Absolutely, yeah.
duty as children, it's our duty as children to take it up a notch from where our parents left us. And what you need is, you need someone who can work with you in that and ensure that you are creating a legacy that is going to be centered on giving the best to your children, but also creating an enabling and non-toxic environment for your children to thrive in. And that also goes to the kind of person that you choose. So feminism, I'm sorry, people who are so much interested into finding partners that are submissive because you want to get the upper hand. I think that reasoning is flawed, because you need someone who can sit down with you at the end of the night, challenge you and ask you and help you create a future. So I don't think feminism is emasculating, and feminism also caters to a lot of other things that men and women go through. It's not just about we want equal rights. It's also about addressing those toxic traits that exist in our
Absolutely.
societies.
Absolutely.
It's about finding common ground, understanding that injustices that happen to women also happen to men, that the boy child should also be considered like the girl child and given equal
Absolutely.
opportunity, and that whatever we do, and that whatever we do at the end of the day is going to impact our lives, not as a gender, but as a collective. And there is nothing, I don't know how explicit we're allowed to get on the show, but there is nothing, I always tell men, there is nothing better than a woman who is mentally, emotionally, and physically aware of her strength. She is going to be there to uplift you, encourage you, and above all, dedicate herself to you in a way that submission is not demanded. Submission is also gained at the end of the day. You want someone who is going to then respect you. What you do or what you offer reciprocates into these relationships. There is nothing more beautiful, more sexy than a woman who is aware of her power and what she can do. And what you can do is be a
Absolutely.
part of and enhance it. So I don't think feminism is emasculating. If you're afraid of a woman who knows her worth and where she stands and what she brings to the table, you should not be with that woman. Find someone who is going to,
Who's-
you know,
Absolutely. Yes. Absolutely.
yeah, yeah,
No, that's so poignant, and that's just so true. I would be asking you, it being Youth Day, what advice
yeah.
would you have for a youth in Zambia? Be it a
My
girl or a boy or lady, gentleman.
my advice for youth in Zambia is, I'm just going to take it back to who I am as a person and what I've gone through, especially like all my life. I've always been called weird. I've always been called crazy. I've been called coconut, muzungu. That, oh, you're such a white person in a black person's body, and I've always struggled to understand who I am as a person, and it's only later on in my adulthood that I realized that there is no one way to being perfect or being the perfect citizen or being the perfect
Absolutely.
individual. What you have to do as young people, especially, is you need to grasp your authenticism. And is that even a word? Yeah, you have to be authentic
Yes.
in who you are, and you have to present yourself in a way that makes you comfortable without fear of judgment, without fear of being castigated. You just have to dig into yourself and find your essence and what makes you you. And once you find out who you are, what makes you who you are, you develop this niche which you can then take onto the world and face the world without having the need and desire to change yourself to be something different. We all can't be the same. What we need to do is encourage our young people to be bold enough to accept, I call it accept your weird, like accept who you are and bask in that essence and present yourself to the world in any way you feel without having to feel you have to change for someone. So that's what I believe the message for young people today should be. Do not feel the need to conform and change yourself and your identity so that you can be socially accepted in a world that has always pointed out our flaws
Of
regardlessly.
course, anyways,
So
yeah.
exactly. So at the end of the day, young people should be encouraged to be who they are, feel who they are, and understand it, and say, listen, this is me. I don't care what you think about it. And that's the only way that they're going to prosper. Be you. We all can't be like, the kind of image that society portrays as the standard of a woman. We can't be the image society portrays as body goals, or the same type of society says you need to get a job doing this, or you need to be in a place that helps you thrive a certain way. Dance to the beat of your own drum. Understand who you are at the core and present yourself.
Absolutely.
And once you do that, I think all will be well for you. It's going to be hard, but it's going to be well at the end of the day. Yeah.
Thank you so much. That this has been a lovely talk and so many nuggets of wisdom thrown here and there. I have enjoyed myself. So thank you
Me-
so much. Our
Thank
time's run out, but I would definitely get you back because I think
Yes.
there's so much we still have to talk about. And to our
Yes.
viewers, thank you so much for watching and listening in. And I hope you've enjoyed yourself as much as I've enjoyed myself. And this has been a special presentation for the Youth Day. And thank you so much for listening and see you next time.
Thank you.